In this video, I'm going to work through a question that focuses on closing out an options contract that an investor wrote. Now, this question may seem difficult at first due to the amount of information you're being bombarded with, but once you get it and the light bulb goes on, you'll see it's a relatively easy question. It's just disguised as a difficult one. Now, before we dig into it, I want to draw your attention to some complimentary bonus content that can be found on our YouTube channel. One video teaches you how to quickly and easily memorize the call-put table, which would be very helpful on exam day. Another video walks through the math involved in closing out an options contract and shows you how quickly things could unravel for a derivatives investor and result in a significant loss. I highly encourage you to check them out. And while you're there, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you'll always know whenever we upload new content. There are 3 nuggets of knowledge that will help you to understand this question. Nugget number 1 is to memorize the call-put table. Now, one of the YouTube videos I mentioned earlier will help you to memorize the table in only a few minutes. I'm going to pull up the call-put table as though you memorized it and jotted it down. Now, notice if you hold an options contract, you have an option to do something. In other words, you cannot be forced. When you hold this type of position, there really isn't anything to close out. If you don't want to take advantage of the option, you can simply let it expire or sell it to somebody else. To use an analogy, it's like holding a ticket to a concert. If you don't want to go, there's really nothing required of you. You simply don't have to go. On the other hand, notice that if you write an options contract, you're obligated to do something. Nugget number 2. Relieving yourself of an obligation usually requires some action on your part. An example will shed some light on this. Let's assume that an investor has just one position, and it's a call option that she wrote. It expires in 3 months from now and obligates her to sell 100 ABC shares at the exercise price of $10 per share if called upon to do so. Now, if the markets are moving against her and she wants to cut her losses, how can she close the position ahead of the expiry date? Well, she can close the position early, which essentially means to cancel it out by purchasing an offsetting call option with the same details. Now, the phrase often used to describe this is from the same series. Recall that this is the opposite to her first position where she wrote and sold the contract. Now, notice if one position obligates her to sell ABC shares at $10 and another position provides her the option to buy ABC shares at $10 and all other details are the same, then those two options will essentially cancel each other out. The exchange acting as intermediary knows this too and therefore considers her first position closed. Now, before we move on, let me ask all of you a hypothetical question. If you wanted to buy anything, whether it be a product or a service, would it be easier to acquire if A, there is lots of supply available, or B, there is limited supply available? Well, I'm pretty sure most of you would say A, just based on real life experience, right? Keep that in mind. Nugget number 3, know what open interest, or op-int for short, refers to. Now, open interest tells you the number of option contracts that are still open, which means they haven't been offset, just as we discussed. So it gives the investor an indication of how many of the options are available in the marketplace and allows for conclusions to be drawn as to how hard it could be to acquire in order to close out another position early. Now, this will make more sense, as we circle back and apply it to the question I mentioned at the top of this video. If Mindy wrote 75 contracts of each of these options and she wants to close out these positions early, she would have to buy offsetting positions. Now, the highlighted one has an open interest of just 80, which is much less than the others. It'll likely be tougher to close out as compared to all the others when there's a greater open interest. So let's select the answer that says April 25 put, and we're correct. Now, as always, when working with our exam preparation questions, read the answer keys for extra helpful nuggets of knowledge. By reading the answer key, you're going to learn that April refers to the month the option expires, but that 25, even though there's no dollar sign, refers to the exercise price, not an actual date. This specific date of expiry is not typically mentioned in an options quote because usually it's uniform across option contracts, such as the third Friday of the expiry month, assuming markets are open that day. This can trick a lot of students, but not if they watch this video.